So everybody can hear me. The recording has started, so we'll go ahead and get started. So first off, my name is Ananga Fali. I'm director of the Aerospace Special Interest Group. I'm really excited that everybody is here today. I'm excited about this conversation that we're going to have on aviation modernization. And so we have two awesome guests joining us for this conversation today. And I say conversation because that's what it is. I have a couple of planned questions for them, but I want everybody, as you think of questions online, I'm monitoring the Q&A. And so I will read those questions that come off the Q&A. And if you have questions in the room, please raise your hand. So first off, we have Kim Bly. And so he is a 737 NG Max Deputy Chief with the Boeing Company. He spent over 35 years with Boeing, really looking at architecting future aircraft. He's had a number of experiences, 11 years on the 757, 767 as a maintenance instructor, also 747, 757, 767, 77 maintenance training assistant manager. In the 90s, Kim also chaired the 737 working group for the APU functionality. So he's definitely had a breadth of experience touching different parts of the aircraft off of this Boeing fleet. He has a bachelor's of science in electrical engineering, another double E. I'm very excited about that. From the University of Washington. And he also completed a certificate of leadership mastery program at UCLA. And so Kim is really passionate about mentoring. I know from talking with him, he's excited about this conversation. He has some roles within NSBE and also an organization called Jumpstart, really focusing on outreach and supporting individuals in the industry. And he's also serving as an advisor for transformative leadership in disruptive times with the University of California, Riverside Extension. Just coming out of COVID, we can definitely see how that is very important. So with that, everybody, let's welcome our first panelists. Thank you. Our second panelist is Jean-Olivier Bog. Please correct me. Mr. Bog is born in Cameroon, Africa, the first of 4 children. At 14, he started to understand that he has a passion for aviation. And so he started off his studies in France. He has his bachelorette in mathematics and physicists. One of the things they say about physicists, they say that they understand how the world works. Everything. My dad is also a physicist and an engineer, and so I can imagine the fun conversations that you have as you were studying that degree. While he was doing that, he was accepted into a 2-year intense course where he did some studies in engineering school before making his transition over to the U.S., where he started to study at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And so he is a first officer with United Airlines and is passionate about volunteering. He's a director of the Houston Space ABAP ACE Academy. And he's also really passionate about helping others and really looking at the next generation of aerospace and aviation leaders. So with that, we're going to dive into a conversation about the future of aviation, both from an aircraft perspective and then also looking at really how are we preparing the next generation of professionals that can work in this industry. So I have a high-level statement that I want to kick us off with. It says, aviation professionals, we're looking at pilots and engineers, and there's this roadmap to aircraft modernization. Things are changing in the industry, ranging from design, maintenance, our approach to manufacturing, different, and also how we really embrace the airways. One of the things I'm interested in each of you doing, I touched a little bit on your background, but when we say the term aviation modernization, what does that mean to you and how have you seen it really impacting your careers?
Kim, you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first.
I would respect the editor, right? More experience.
Sure, I'll go first. Yeah. So aviation, I'm going to jump to an organization you may be aware of called the FAA, the Federal Aviation uh, Federal Aviation Agency, right? Yeah. Okay. So just to make a point here, when people hear the word FAA, they immediately think of the word safety, which is absolutely true. But there is another mandate that the FAA has that a lot of people don't know. It is to promote aviation. So the FAA has two mandates: to ensure that aviation is safe and to promote aviation. So if you really think about it, what does it mean? Because if you make something safe, like say an airplane, you can build a tank. It's relatively safe, but it's not going to promote aviation because it will be too expensive to operate, right? And next thing you know, the ticket will be too expensive. Nobody will fly the airplane, and then there goes the aviation. So the concept here is, yes, you want to make it safe, but you also want to ensure that you promote it. And at the company I work for, the Boeing company, that is a huge challenge for us, constantly, nonstop, and that's true with at the airline level as well. Everything needs to be safe. Safety comes very first, but at the same time, they need to be able to make money, right? Promoting aviation, make money. So that's always a trade-off, and I'd be more than happy to go deeper into that. But that's what aviation means to me. Not only safe, but there's an economic and the promotion of aviation as well.
Huh?
So if I quite understand, and that was a wonderful question. Inenga, thank you for chiming in and jumping into the water first. And the way I understand aviation modernization, for me, just out of the bat, I'm thinking about like a few words, like it's innovation, improvement. We try to give opportunities, and you cannot give opportunities to anyone out there if you not improve yourself, if you not innovate. I came through, if I go back based on the bio, well written, um, when I just first had a dream. I'm pretty sure the type of aircraft that I'm flying today was not there, but I was already dreaming, right? Because something has happened in between. So that's what I see. I see opportunity behind that aviation modernization, and I think that the dreamers that are today, they will probably have something better. That would be totally different because we combine that safety side of it and the promotion side of it that the FAA basically do for anybody else out there.
Question.
Sorry, question. Just I wanted to clarify what Mr. Bug was talking about. So when you say better, are you talking about, like, for instance, how your cockpit is? You know, our forefathers used to fly by wire.
Yes.
Have glass cockpit. Are
Just-
you talking in that?
Yes, in that specific area, let's say the ergonomic, right? It used to be back in the days, maybe where you need probably 3 aviators, 3 pilots on a cockpit. Now they improved some section, and then it went down to 2. There's some saves, and they're working really hard to not have a body behind that. That's impressive, right? And if you go back when I was a dreamer, I was probably thinking like you're gonna be probably 4 or 5 bodies in there, and it's a lot of technology that come with that modernization. That's why I say innovation. So that's what I see, and we see that already on some of the type of transportation, and slowly we're just gonna get used to that. Maybe not me, but our children and grandchildren, they be okay with that.
So I really like that you commented on the dreamers in talking about aviation, and what's that balance? It's always a challenge between, we're trying to build a safe system, we're also trying to build the right system for the right cost. One of the things that is constantly coming up in this conversation about aviation modernization is how should we be approaching airspace? And so, when we're talking about dreamers, you have people dreaming about autonomous aircraft. Also, expanding the breadth of pilots that are engaged in this airspace. And so the complexity of airspace is changing. What are some of the conversations that you two may have been involved in your professions when you're looking at that from each of your perspectives? How is safety being challenged? What are those design challenges, human challenges that are happening that you feel that we need to look at a little bit deeper?
That's a wonderful question. Again, Inenga, not being an expert in that specific subject, just by someone who will be read and actually do the day-to-day job with what we have today and where they want to bring us in the next 5, 10, probably 20 years prior for me to retire. I think the human being have changed the way, just for example, the way they travel.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have more people, they would love to travel, that put a lot of stress to the manufacturer, Boeing, to build more airplanes. Meaning that you're gonna produce a lot of airplanes, you're gonna put them on the street, like you produce a lot of car, you're gonna have to build that infrastructure. So that's gonna bring a lot of stress to on the FAA side to build more safety net and build probably more routes. And the airport have to change. Looking at today, I mean, probably you don't go to different places. I have the occasion to go to different airports. All I see is construction here, construction here, construction here, just to accommodate
Mm-hmm.
that flux, that way of maybe traveling today, the way of moving around that was not maybe prior to the pandemic is totally different. But again, with the FAA having those two mandates, they work really hard, and that's where the aviation modernization comes. That's where the opportunity comes. That's where we're here in the University of Houston, where we got the future of the aerospace student or the dreamers that we come to the industry and kind of support that pressure that we basically see around.
Yeah, you hinted on some possible new jobs that, in terms of the stressors. Yes, we want to get more aircraft in the skies, we want more routes, but you said there's a whole business of airport modernization that has to go on into that. That's a new market, a new field for some. There's also just the logistics behind that. You hinted on that. And so when we're looking at the job market, one of the things is that it kind of seems like you're highlighting that there's many different pathways that this is going to impact.
Yes, that's absolutely absolutely true. And I wish I can redesign my life. And I'd be happy to probably carry more skills
Mhm.
and everything. Every time something changes, guess what? I use the skills just to adapt quickly on this specific area
Mhm.
because is a lot of job that is available. I mean, just the technology itself touch every single area and disrupt every single thing. So that creates something else, and you be able to adapt it and start to basically move around and be qualified fast enough to grab that opportunity when that comes to play.
Okay. Kim, what are your thoughts when it comes to, the diversity of aircraft getting into the skies, the taxing that we're putting on the airways, and
Yeah, so the way I look at aviation, as most of you probably know, aviation is one of the safest type of transportation that man ever invented. You compare that to any other type of transportation, aviation is one of the safest. Now, how do we get here? It's actually work as a system. There's a feedback loop by design. We always learn from the mistake, right? From the accidents and so on and so forth. And we're constantly making that improvement, both to the safety and to the economics. I always want to stress the word economic here because everything, there's money involved. You can't just think safety alone. There's money there wrapping inside there. Back to the number of aircrafts, just to give you an idea, the fleet that I'm overseeing, is over 8,000 airplanes. It's a 737 next generation, including the MAX that is now, we have probably about 1,500 out delivered and in service. So about 8,500 aircraft roughly right now and counting. So just give you a sheer number of what 8,500 airplane means. If you know the average person heartbeat, I don't know, about 80 beats per second. Every heartbeat is in 737 takeoff or land somewhere in the world. Every heartbeat, every day, 24 hours a day. That's how many airplanes out there. It is. So back to your question about congestion. Yes, that is exactly what the aviation is evolving to, because you have limited, you have, the sky is quite big, right? It looks like you could fit a lot of stuff up there. However, if you all come in for the landing at one airport, well, now you're starting to squeeze all those aircraft into a smaller area, so become congested. And so with that, technology comes along. We have, air separation, air traffic control, all kinds of modernizing computer equipment that makes sure that there's separation between aircraft. There's traffic avoidance computer. There's terrain avoidance computer. It's just on. And that is constantly evolving, by the way. It is nonstop. And rules and regulation constantly being tweaked to make that fit. So at the end of the day, if you really think about aviation or engineering for that matter, it is evolving. It is not standstill, and it's evolving, and that's actually by design. You don't want to stand still. You're always going to change. You're always going to move, and you're always going to try to make things better. And occasionally, when you do make mistakes, you're going to learn from it, and you're going to feed it back into the system, and you're going to improve the whole thing. So that's what it's all about. Yeah. Question.
Yeah, so as we talk about aviation modernization, I'd love to hear your thoughts on either electric aircraft or electric aircraft, and what that means, and the air mobility movement, where they've got, somebody mentioned it earlier, these smaller electric aircraft that are like the Uber type service, and what that means for air traffic control and just the technology itself, because you two have an interest in it in a different way than the people developing the technology, right? You're flying it and you're managing it. So what do you think of those things?
You want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. So for the small aircraft, that's tough because I'm involved in the large aircraft, 100 seats or more. And with those type of aircraft, electric is we're a long way from 100% electric for those things, right? So you're going to continue to use some sort of aviation fuel. We're getting into the biofuel now, where they actually make fuel out of algae. So that's something that they're investigating. But it's at the end of the day, yeah, there's no electric. Now, having said that, if you look at the evolution of the 787, which is one of the most, I'll say it, from a technology wise for the Boeing, it's one of the most advanced, because it was built practically from a blank piece of paper, as compared to, say, my 37, for example. My 37, every version of it is built from. It's not built from blank piece of paper. So you take something and then you make it better, but you still keep, say, 60% or 50% or whatever amount of what's the previous version is. The 87 is one of the aircraft where they almost start from a blank piece of paper. There are some built from, but for the most part, and they literally switch a lot to electrical. You'll be amazed how much electrical is in that aircraft. Now, yes, you still need fuel to run the engine, but many of the things inside the airplane, for example, the air circulation system for the other version of Boeing aircraft is all use bleed system, meaning you take the engine and you bleed off of the compressor. Whereas the 87, you actually use electrical motor to run a compressor and bleed this, do the same thing, but it's all electrical. So it uses a lot of electrical. So back to your question about the smaller, like Uber type thing. Believe it or not, the big aircraft today, from a technology standpoint, it is practically could fly itself. It is now, obviously, the FAA is not going to allow that. So that's not going to happen anytime soon. But I'm talking about from a technology standpoint, it's have enough technology where it could take off, land. I mean, the autopilot system is amazing, and it could actually fly itself. I mean, the pilot is there. In fact, we used to have a joke when we design airplane that we would design airplane and we would have a dog in the flight deck, and if the pilot touch anything, the dog will bite him.
Oh, so,
That's an engineering joke, by the way. So.
so Jean Olivier, how do you feel about that? You know, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Our aircraft are so advanced to the point that it's going to change the pilot's experience.
All right, so if I'm thinking like I'm old school, right, I would feel bad, right, because I don't want to learn something new, and that's just a humanity on me, all right. That's just a human being on me, right?
Mhm.
Because hey, man, you know what? Back in the days, it was a big phone. You know, you gotta give this to my mom. She's gonna get confused, right? So I'd be like, oh no, I don't want that. I don't want to push that improvement. I don't want to push that innovation, right? But if I think about my kids and I'm thinking about my grandkids, I'll say, yeah, you know what? It's a great idea, man. You know what? Let's push this, and maybe let me catch up. Let me try to learn as much as I can, right? Not falling behind, right? So that's just my thought process. So I'm 50% if you wanted to say it. So
Okay. So one of the things that I started to think about is, I don't know if anybody has been to Oshkosh. It's one of the biggest aviation uh, conferences in the United States. It's held in Wisconsin. And so we talked about congested airways. And so when you're going into Oshkosh, if you get the chance to fly in, I've flown in before, you have thousands of aircraft all in this one airspace. And so imagine this arm here is your runway. I'll use this one so it's in the camera. So you land here and you have this much space. Someone else lands here. Someone else lands here. We're talking about dreamers, right? When we look at airports today, right? There's a long runway, you know, to so that you can bleed off. You know, has there been discussion about adopting adopting short landings, and then, you know, if we're going to have more and more traffic, and if we did that, what technology would need to come in place? Just thinking out loud. And then also, how would that change how we're training people to fly? What challenges do you see with that?
I mean, personally, if I have to just rewind back real quick, right? Um, Back in the days was probably we're just gonna take a quick example. Maybe here at Bush, the airspace was able just to contain like within an hour, like probably 20 airplanes,
Mhm.
right? And then the space was okay. You know what? This guy's in the front, and whatever follows, maybe have 10 minutes.
Okay.
But and then again, something created where everybody want to move, everybody want to jump on a plane because the ticket are probably less expensive. Guess what? Want to go places, right? Now you got a bunch of planes. What air traffic for corridor is okay. You know what? Instead to put a space of 10 minutes, we're gonna shrink that space.
Mhm.
And the human
All the neighborhood that's going to and suing city for adding no runway because they're adding noises and is it affect the environment, you know, you're gonna kill more birds and things like that. It's very, very challenging. So it's one thing that you wanted to do something and then you have to overcome the money factor, the environment factor, the politics and everything else. Not always easy, but as I mentioned earlier, aviation is evolving. It's nonstop. So 10 years from now, things will be a lot different than what it is today. And the goal is we're going to keep providing that feedback
Okay.
and keep that safety and make sure everything's safe. Safety is paramount.
So we've discussed a lot about safety, you know, dreaming in terms of what should be some of the future innovations that we're bringing forth. There are some specific ones that are being discussed by the airlines, probably in the interest of cost, and saving money. Supersonic jets, they're in the new future, especially when we're talking about commercial aviation. And so, you know, I personally have seen reports out by specific airlines saying that, hey, in the next 5 years, we're going to be here. You know, this is going to get us to where we want to go faster. What do you think about some of these technologies that are being highlighted as opportunities to leapfrog ahead?
Right, I can go first. So back in the 90s, actually, Boeing built a supersonic jet. And it was actually shelved because boils down to cost again. Sorry to say that, because it all boils down to what is the cost, fuel burn. And if you do the math, it's down to how much fuel you burn per seat. So each passenger you carry, you do that math and you figure out, okay, this much passenger, this much cargo, how much fuel is burned, because fuel means money.
Mhm.
And so when you do that math, unless you have a market for it, you can't really sell airplane. And that's the problem. And you probably heard of the Concorde. The Concorde actually is a supersonic. It can fly faster than a piece of sound. And after one accident, it was shelved. But during those days, the Concorde, I don't know if you could visit actual Concorde. It has only, I don't know, about 20 seats or something. It's not a very big airplane. And each one of those seats at the time, I think it's like around 10 grand. And it's for rich people that want to fly from London to New York in about 3 hours or something like that. Because and you can only go supersonic in the ocean because inland you're going to create the sound breaking through, and it's not good for people down below. So you fly slower, and as soon as you get in the ocean, you go fast. And at the end of the day, it's for rich people at the time, very rich, like 10 grand. And today's inflation is probably like 15, 20 grand a seat. Now, would you, the average people, pay for that? The answer is probably no. And so if you have a market, then yes, we'll build the airplane and we'll sell it. But if there's no market, it's driven by market, right? And that market is money. So what do you?
I mean, you cover a good 99% of the subject, right? The only thing that I see, like when you were mentioning that, is always come back, right? The Concorde was there. It was a market back in the days, and sorry that he ended up the way he ended up after the tragic accident. But I'm pretty sure the engineer and some smart people, some people with capital, wanted to bring that back. And we want to bring that back because it's nothing else that is available for a specific public, or it might be a pressure where they have those guys, they want that Concorde to come back. And then the company just took over and say, hey, you know what, we capable of building this. We will see. I mean, we be around it and we will see if that was a great idea. But at the moment, it's an opportunity. So
Mhm.
those guys who were not qualified, and they can start qualifying themselves right there. I guess what they're gonna have a job because they're gonna have to work for that project. So that's the same thing. I mean, if you want to compare when we look at the Airbus with two full deck, the big one out there, yes, it was a market, but today the market don't support that, so they just stop the production. Is that going to be the same thing with the supposed supersonic airplane? I wish I can tell you. I don't know.
All right. Oh, question from Bobby?
Just talking about I feel like the conversation around supersonic that's bubbling up again. But how do we feel about like the electric aircrafts, right? The ones that allow for like vertical takeoff, like for smaller cargo, obviously more like coaster flights, where we see companies like Heartbeat or Heartflow, I can't think of their names, or Beta, or those other companies who are now like, they claim anyway, they're ready to commercialize these type of airplanes. And I'm assuming some type of, there's gonna be some type of bottleneck, right? Maybe not at the aircraft level, because I don't think they fly as high as we do. But if we're now talking about using them for commuter flights, using them for like hops, what they call it in cargo, hop stop, not hop stops, whatever. Yeah, whatever UPS and them are doing with like cargo delivery, medical deliveries, things like that. Like, what's that?
I think I personally think that we might end up having the same type of trouble that we're having right now with the drone, with the FAA, right? Because when the drone came out, it was just restricted to certain people can get the license, but now it's kind of like, wow, you bring a lot of issue, right? I think we are going forward that. It's a great idea. Again, it's a great idea because it gave a lot of opportunities to people. I mean, you're thinking about something, you put some drawing, guess what? We got to put that to the production line, and some people put some capital and make some money out vice versa, right? So I think that the FAA is so saturated right now that they need some help. And that's just the truth of it, right? I mean, if you're just passionate about working for the aviation the administration, and just go into that is a big chunk of subject where we need problem that we got to solve. Those are not easy cases. I mean, you can work on all those for the next 30 years before you go to the bottom of it. It's not going to be something that can be resolved overnight, in my opinion.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the problem that the FAA is currently having when it comes to drones? So just to level set everybody here.
Yeah, because when the drone came in, right, it was just built the way, okay, you know what, a specific company because based on a specific job.
Mhm.
Now you can find a drone, you go to Walmart and you buy your own drone, but you know that you cannot just fly that the way from your background, right? You can be in your house, but if you're close to the airport, yes, you bring some limitation there. You can get in really serious trouble, right? Just flying that small drone from Walmart. And they were not thinking about that when it was, okay, you know, drone, we can, guess what? Some people now start doing the delivery of boxes and some people doing like aerial photography. They have to have some specific license. You cannot just invite someone, say, hey, you know what, I want a picture of my roof. If you're close to the airport, I can guarantee you're gonna have some because the FAA or the air traffic controller, they have like a sensor, and the drone probably work with Google, so they know that hey, someone is flying.
Mhm.
Because we see that every day. I mean, you come in to land, and next thing you know, they say, hey man, could you see that aircraft? We don't see that because I'm looking for that big thing, right?
Mhm.
But someone is flying. But they see that on the scope or something, and they chase you down because they have folks on the ground. They just take the geolocalization or something like that, and they figure the thing out real quick. So those are the type of trouble that they already going through right now, but they didn't see that when they were writing the whole entire proposal. So it's some serious stuff there. I wish I was younger. I would just go back and just find any type of job, adapt myself. No, seriously. I mean, it's a lot of opportunity out there.
So we're talking about opportunity. You still have the opportunity to jump into these new things if you're interested. Don't
Yes.
don't cut yourself out. Don't cut yourself out.
I would love to.
So vertical lift aircraft. I'm glad you brought that up because that is the talk of a lot of organizations. And you know that one of the things I want to lead us into our last question, it kind of talks about future workforce development. So vertical lift aircraft, short stints. So one of the things I know the FAA is talking about when you look at pilots and licensing, there's different levels, right? So now we're introducing new aircraft, new approaches. How do you foresee that market changing? From an engineering standpoint as well, now we have new systems out there, new maintenance required, new servicing. What new jobs do you see coming with this aviation modernization? As you sit back and look at the industry, how would you tell everybody to prepare? What are those jobs that we need to think about, and how should people prepare themselves?
In a quick statement, I was just going to say, go with your heart, go with your dream, because when you wake up and you just go to that specific job or career field, it shouldn't be like something like, oh, you know what, nah, I really hate to wake up and go for, right? So just pick anything is available to you. Pick based on, you know what, I want to wake up for the next 30 years, every morning or every afternoon, right? And I go to do this thing and I just want to love it because I'm just passionate, because I'm just curious. I love that. And I want to see that grow. I want to see that become like crazy. That would be my recommendation.
I can, add, since you asked about job, um, one of the, thing that I can kind of, pre-predict, maybe, foresee into the future that's gonna be needed a lot is, stress analysis, structure engineer. And why do I say that? Because as you know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the certification of an aircraft. So once an airplane is certified and one is delivered by the Boeing company, it's considered to be airworthy. And the airworthiness certificate that goes with it, which is granted by the FAA, is it's a property, it's aeronautic property. And it essentially means that that aircraft is safe to fly in its entirety. Meaning, once you deviate from that configuration, let's say you get hit by a bird strike, right? You put a dent on the wing, and you put a dent on the engine cowling or whatever. Well, now you no longer have an airworthiness aircraft by design, right? By the definition, you no longer have one because you now deviate from the original aircraft. So guess what? What do you have to do to put it back? Well, you have to repair it. And it turns out that we see that all the time, and as the number of airplane growing over time, you're just gonna have a lot more of those. You're gonna get, FOD is what we call foreign object damage, such as like these drone, you get hitting the airplane, birds hitting airplane. So you have to repair, and we have a team of engineers actually monitor, and customer would send in requests saying, hey, I got this crack, this dent, this whatever on my fuselage, on my wing. How do I repair this? And we would provide repair instructions so that you can repair it and then you be back into your airworthiness again, right? Well, if you have that sheer number of airplane keep growing up and up over time, you can need that much more people that could perform that type of job. So structure and analysis or stress engineer, those are going to be a huge demand as I can see into the future. So if that's something you like to do, be sure to have a job with the Boeing company for sure.
And then we're gonna wrap up here. And so if there's any more questions, they're here for a few more minutes. But what I would say is that we've heard some really interesting things today, ranging from, hey, the market is changing, but you want to make sure that you're working on something that you're passionate on. And then also there are some areas, because the market is changing, that we want to focus on. So we're going to have a lot of aircraft in the sky flown by experienced pilots and what's the word for that? Enthusiasts. And so how do we share that market space safely? So there's a lot of opportunity there from both a business, a coaching standpoint, and it doesn't matter where you are in your career, the time is now to jump in. So I want to thank everybody for joining us.
I just wanted to add one last thing about the job thing. It's great to dream. I'm a dreamer, and I feel like some of us are privileged to pursue our dreams. But if anybody here is just a pragmatic person, there is safety in like learning how to, fly autonomous aircraft, for instance. Because that's the way that like all these companies are going to need remote pilots. So you don't have to be passionate about it if you know how to use a joystick or whatnot. That, I'm all about making money while you can. So this might be something to consider, do this 2, 3, 4 years, make some money, and then go pursue your passion. You could marry pragmatism with dreaming.
Yes, most definitely. So with that, we'll end. And then just to build on one of the things I would encourage everybody, talk to them if you're interested. Air shows are a really, really great way to learn a lot about aviation and what's doing. I would invite you all to come out to the Midwest and come to Oshkosh. It's a great air show. You have enthusiasts to airlines to companies like the Boeing company. United Airlines comes to Oshkosh pretty heavily, and you'll get to learn a lot about what's going on, and it continues this discussion. So with that, we'll break here and we'll get ready for our next speaker. So Ronald Stubblefield, he's going to talk to us about tech entrepreneurship and the SBIR process, and fast and tech transfer. And so we're going to set up shop to change our, for the presentation, we're going to move the ASC reflections into the networking part. And so Ron is gonna speak until up until the 5 o'clock time frame for his presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.